Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the spring premiere of Sports Central. We'll start this week with baseball. We'll start in 4A with the Castle Knights. Last week they knocked off Central 13-0, and they beat the 10th ranked team in 4A in Jeffersonville on Friday night 12-8. And then on Saturday they faced off with Southern Indiana Athletic Conference foe North, and the North Huskies knocked them off 6-1 at Castle. North's Ryan Dills pitched a complete game, only gave up 1 run on 6 hits, struck out 4. He just really dominated the game. So now with that loss, the Knights are 5-2 on the year, 1-1 in conference. Pretty busy week for the Knights this week. They are home to South Spencer tomorrow. They're at Harrison on Wednesday, at Jasper on Thursday, and at Wrights on Saturday. So a busy week for Castle, a lot of games coming up, and with the way the Knights are playing, I think they'll fare pretty well this upcoming week. In 3A with the Boonville Pioneers, they lost their season opener to Memorial last Wednesday 10-0, but the Tigers scored 8 runs in 1 inning. Boonville walked 6 batters, really struggled in that 1 inning. So if you can believe it, that game was closer than a 10-0 game, but all the less the Tigers won that game pretty easily. Pioneers bounced back on Friday, beating Bossy 5-3 on the road for their first win of the year. But then on Saturday, they traveled to Lagodi and lost 5-4. Lagodi scored runs in the last inning to beat Boonville. And although Lagodi is a 1A team, they're the 3rd ranked 1A team, so they're a pretty solid team, so not a terrible loss for the Pioneers. They play at Harrison today, which will be a pretty tough game. Harrison's always good. Then they play Wrights Tuesday at home, at Mount Carmel on Wednesday, home to South Spencer on Friday, at Heritage Hill Saturday, and then they play Mount Vernon again a week from today at home. So they have a lot of games crammed in, not a lot of time off. So we'll see how the Pioneers fare in their busiest week of the season so far. Tecumseh had a rough week last week, lost all 3 of their games they played. They lost to Tell City, Gibson Southern, and Forest Park. They're now 1-5 on the year, but Coach Duncan told me they're very young and inexperienced. So he expected a little slow start to the year, so they will get better. They play host to Mount Vernon today. They got Princeton at home on Wednesday, and then they travel up to Wood Memorial to face their rival, the Trojans, on Thursday. Then they have Cannleton on Saturday. So they beat Wood once last year, lost them in the sectional, and they beat Cannleton twice last year. So hopefully there's a couple wins on the schedule for the Braves this year. In softball action, the Castle softball Lady Knights beat North last week in their only action of the week. They face Wrights tonight in an SIAC showdown. That's always a big game. Wrights is usually pretty tough. Conference opponent, sectional opponent, so pretty big game for the Knights. Then they also face Pike Central on Thursday, and then they play in a Jasper tournament this weekend. And the Lady Knights are 3-1 so far this year, so a pretty good start for the Knights. Boonville softball team only had 1 game last week. Heartbreaking 6-5 loss to Mount Vernon. They were up 5-1 going into the bottom of the 5th inning, and then Mount Vernon scored 2 runs in the 5th, 1 in the 6th, and 2 more in the bottom of the 7th to pull off the 6-5 victory. It's the first time Mount Vernon's beat Boonville in softball in many years, so it was a big win for Mount Vernon. Tough loss for Boonville. They're now 1-1 on the year. They've only played 2 games, so they're a little behind a lot of other teams. But some good news for Boonville. Alexis Chapman returned against Mount Vernon. She's been out for a long time with a knee injury, and she went 3 for 4 with a couple RBIs, so that's a good sign for Coach Wilson and the Pioneers. A busy week for them this week. They're at Central tonight, home to South Spencer tomorrow, and then at Vincent's Lincoln on Wednesday before the Southern Slam tournament this weekend, Friday and Saturday. So I think that's a 16 tournament this year. So every team plays, I think, 4 games, Coach Wilson was telling me. So should be exciting action at Boonville with the Southern Slam this weekend. The Tecumseh softball team, 3 wins this week. After losing their first game to Central before spring break, they rebounded nicely. They beat both Wood Memorial and New Harmony 10-0, and then they squeaked out a close win against South Spencer. So they're now 3-1, a good spring back, and They're at Pike Central tomorrow, and then they play in the Southern Slam Friday and Saturday as well, so that's another 4 games on their schedule. In track action, the Castle Knights scored 2 wins over Harrison and Bosse. They're looking pretty strong this year as they were last year. And they have another track meet today against Central, and then they're at the Terre Haute North Invitational on Saturday. Boonville, the track team, they're struggling a little bit. They lost to both Washington and Gibson Southern last week, but they host Vincent's Lincoln tonight, so hopefully the Pioneer track runners can get their first win of the year. And tennis action, Tecumseh plays Heritage Hills today, South Spencer Wednesday, Wood Memorial Thursday, so a pretty busy week for the Lady Braves tennis team. In golf, Castle faces Memorial today in boys golf at Rolling Hills. Castle and Memorial are always rivals. They're always good at golf. And I know this is the first action for the Castle Knights in golf team this year, so it's a big opening test for them, so hopefully they can do pretty well and get a good start to their year. And that wraps up this week's edition of Sports Central, so please tune in next Monday for a recap of this week's sports action. Thanks a lot.